Okay, Jim, thank you so much for agreeing to do this video. So the reason this came about is because I saw you talking about agentic AI at EUC Forum a couple of weeks ago now, and you're talking about second brain, and I found that really fascinating. So I appreciate you doing this video, and special thanks to Telefonica Tech for letting us use their amazing office, Michael Downing for making it all happen. So thank you. So I've got quite a few questions for you today, Jim, and hopefully you're okay answering them. If not, just let me know. Okay, so the first one, and I think this is an important one, but what impact do you think agentic AI is going to have on the way we work?
So talking about the future is always a dodgy thing, but I can give you an example of the way it's changed how I work.
Brilliant, please do.
So if people are familiar with the concept of second brain, it's just a whole lot of markdown files that gives you context and constraints and audience to whatever queries you're doing. And then on top of that, if you have agentic ways of doing things, then it can actually go and do stuff in the world. And I do not, if I can help it, open up an application anymore. Everything I do.
Sounds alien.
It does sound weird, but everything I do now, if I can possibly do it, is through my second brain. So it helps me produce the content, but it helps me also consume the content, index it, and make it available and rich in context for the next set of decisions, the next set of content creation. This has utterly changed my workflow in the last 2 or 3 months. And everybody I speak to who has adopted this same way of working is equally as evangelistic about how it's changed their entire working life. It's made me be much more effective, fewer things slip through the cracks, and yeah, it's a great way of working. And if I think about how it's changed me and my way, I think it's going to change everybody's way of working. It's that much of a step change. The tooling will get easier, everything will get cheaper. And I really believe that this agentic second brain workflow is going to be the way forward. It might get not even be called that. It might be subsumed into the tools and that is the way of working. But yeah, it's going to happen.
That's really interesting. But Jim, you're, by your nature, ahead of the curve. How soon do you think the rest of the workforce, the rest of people who are out there working at enterprises now, are going to start consuming it in the same way that you're doing right now?
So this all started off with tools for devs, and now people are taking those developer tools and making them for knowledge workers. And I believe that for knowledge workers, it's going to move super fast. It is that useful. And even just by word of mouth inside organizations, by the people I've been talking to, it just starts to spread. As long as you've got access to the tools, people start using them and changing the way they work.
So your role at Microsoft, and correct me if I'm wrong, is product manager for Windows 365 for agents. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, that leads me on to our next question, Jim. What is Windows 365 for agents?
So Windows 365 for agents is a computer use agent.
Okay.
So effectively, an agent can log onto a machine, be that Windows or Linux, but primarily Windows, and use the OS, apps, and browsers on that Windows instance. As if it's a human. So it will move around, it will scroll, it will point and click, it will hover, it will do whatever is possible for a human to do inside Windows, an agent can do inside Windows. So you can manipulate any app, any browser, any OS setting that it's allowed to do inside Windows.
So why Windows 365 for agents specifically?
So it's super interesting. A lot of the time you want that environment to be always available and infinitely, we are talking cloud here, so infinite, you know what I mean? Infinitely scalable for enterprise. And you want it to be on a consumption basis, so you're only using as much as you want. Windows 365 for humans already has all the right tooling baked in for an agentic workflow as well. So you've got the governance, security, clients, visibility, telemetry. All of these are still necessary if you've got an agent logging on. There's a couple of extra things as well, like observability that you need, but 95% of what you need for agentic workflow is already within Windows 365. And we've just added on the extra bit you need for the agentic workflow. It's such a natural fit when you've got an agent logging onto a virtual machine that is spun up, spun down, you've got apps delivered to it, you've got images inside, you've got security, etc. It's a very, very natural fit. And for EUC teams within an organization, this is something that they should be looking at because that agentic workflow is coming to your organization. And as the EUC team, you should be able to stick your hand up and say, no worries, I can handle this. Absolutely. Put the agentic workflow on my EUC team and we can handle it.
For obvious reasons. Here's a question for you, Jim, and maybe it's a controversial one. But why does an AI agent that needs a runtime environment Why couldn't it just use an API?
So agents can create scripts which can run against APIs fine, but that's super brittle and super single use. So we have things called MCPs, which are Model Context Protocol, I believe, and they sit in front of an API and provide tools for an agent to use. These are great where they exist, where they're maintained by the original vendor, not some open source stuff. We all know how easy it is to support open source stuff in the enterprise. And for things that need speed or need scale, great. But that's only a percentage of my workflow. I need loads of other things too. And having a QA gives you the flexibility to do everything else, or even not actually bother. Do I need to go and find an MCP and install it, make sure it's from the right vendor, make sure it's trusted, make sure it's up to date? Or if it's a one-off task, why install it? Why install an MCP? Why not just get a QA to do it?
So what you're saying is then this isn't just a stopgap until we get a runtime environment that works in the enterprise. This is here to stay.
It's absolutely here to stay. If you look at what OpenClaw and Microsoft have got a new product called Scout, which is a claw in terms of an agent, the easiest way to do things is a QA. And I think that we will see that if you've got a QA that is accurate, that is observable, that is quick, and that is trusted, that acts within the correct constraints, you don't actually need an MCP. You can just do everything with a QA. I'm not saying MCPs are bad. They're nice and fast, and there's use cases for MCPs, but a QA can do it all if you have a good one.
Let's think about this from an enterprise perspective. What is the challenge that this is solving for enterprises?
So the enterprise challenge is, how do you onboard this agentic workflow in a manageable, trusted, secure, well-governed way? That's the challenge for enterprises. And Windows 365 for Agents gives you all of that tooling built in so that you can run these agentic workflows in your enterprise, get the business value for everybody who wants to work this way, and make sure that it complies with all of your policy.
Okay, that makes sense. And I suppose there's a follow-on question to this, which is, do you foresee sometime very soon where at least 50% of the workforce will be agentic and 50% human? And it's a tricky question.
Yeah, so I don't like the framing of that question.
Fine, good.
So I think the workforce will remain the same, but you'll have the addition of a huge amount of agentic workers. So say if you're an EUC admin now, you're running 10,000 sessions a day on EUC, or maybe you'll have 5,000 sessions a day of agentic or 20,000 sessions a day of agentic workflow. So yeah, it's not like 100% is going to go down to 50%. It's like there's going to be an additional huge load of this agentic workflow in your org.
And that sort of brings up another question for me. Why is Windows 365 the right environment for these agentic agents? Is it the fact they can be spun up very quickly?
You need you need the environment to be ready. So you need your apps right there. You need the right image that's updated and is secure right there. You need it to be on a consume basis, so it needs to spin up and spin down very quickly. And Windows 365, like I say, already has that built in. So Windows 365 for Agents should be, and we hope it will be, QA environment on Windows for everybody, not just people who are in the Microsoft ecosystem, but for every single QA environment that wants to use Windows, we want Windows 365 for Agents to be that layer.
Okay. And this next one sort of, again, it's just come to me. What's the difference between Windows 365 and Windows 365 for Agents?
So Windows 365 traditionally was a one-to-one persistent model. We have released loads of new stuff over the last couple of years where you've got Flex, which is a shared non-persistent environment, where you've got cloud apps. So as a whole, the Windows 365 product line has broadened, covering more and more scenarios and use cases. And this is just another use case that we're developing on top of that. We've had to build the observability and the telemetry and everything else into that, and how you do the operating the Windows.
So Jim, I've got a great question for you. And, I'm going to admit I'm a little bit biased here. But in the enterprise, who do you think should be owning agentic AI? I think it should be end user computing. As I said, I'm biased. What do you think?
So there's sort of like a two-part answer to this. In terms of running the actual substrate, the compute, loading up the VMs, running the sessions, making sure that it is, as I said before, the governance and auditability and security is right. But then there's another way that the EUC team can get involved, and that is helping design the agents for their organization. So it's a step out of the usual EUC team role of managing infrastructure, but these agents inside your org are also going to become infrastructure. So the EUC team knows the apps. They know what people do, right? That's part of our job. And now we can say, okay, I've identified a workflow that is a good candidate for an agentic experience. Let's go and build that. The EUC team can expand their role into building these agents and not just running the substrate that the agents are on.
And I think that's a really interesting point, because I think one of the things that end user teams don't necessarily get credit for is understanding personas and work styles from the users, understanding there are different types of users and different personas out there for doing different things. It feels that the end user computing, or the desktop team, whatever you want to call them, are the closest to that in the business and could potentially be the ones who know how to construct that substrate, as you call it.
So if you're living in an agentic workflow, then you're probably using an app as your, whether it's VS Code, whether it's whatever, it doesn't matter. But you're living in that app to go and talk to everything else. That is your end user compute then. That is your end user interface to all the computer back end. So the end user computing team should look after that interface with the end user.
That makes perfect sense to me. So Jim, that's been really useful. So what do you think people should do next after listening to this and understanding the message?
So for everybody in their personal workflow, go build a second brain.
I need a first one. Yeah, I need a first brain, Jim.
Go build a second brain. Try out this workflow. Find out for yourself if you think that I'm telling the truth about this is the future. And the second one is Windows 365 for Agents has just gone GA. So all of the docs, all of the instructions to how to set up Windows 365 for Agents are already out there. Go try it and see what it looks like for yourself in terms of the infrastructure side. Second brain for your personal side, Windows 365 for Agents for the infrastructure side.
Jim, thank you so much for that. That's been really useful. And thank you, Telefonica Tech, for letting us use your office today. Take care.